Good afternoon, everyone. I am Colleen Ferrary. I'm the owner and founder of Small Business USA. And for anybody who knows anything, of course, we fund and love generating winners. So we're really excited to be partners with that. And Tom Boyle is one of our expert contributors and one of our board members for Generating Winners. And he owns Boyle College Consulting and does amazing, amazing things for families. So with no further ado, please allow me to introduce not Shannon, but Tom Boyle today. How are you, Tom?
I'm well. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Colleen. Appreciate it.
Well, I have some kind words for a guy who does so much for people. It's important.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to talk about, just some really quick statistics here. And I know that we want to keep the call brief for our members, and moms are really busy and employers are really busy. But here's some crazy statistics I found. 44% of employees, I think HR managers know this in general, but for our maybe smaller businesses with less than 100 or 200 employees, 44% of employees would take another job if it paid more today. And Sally Mae did a study just last year that studied parents, and they found out that 60% of parents were extremely stressed about paying for college. More importantly, 65% of all parents and students were unaware of their options for paying. So 65% of the population is just leaving money on the table and doing this the hard way, right?
Absolutely. Those are good statistics to bring out. I hate to be throwing a lot of numbers around, but it kind of goes with what you're saying. 2014 and 15, the cost of admittance at state schools in state was an average of about $19,000 a year. Out of state was about $33,000 a year, and private school was about $43,000 a year. Those were the average across the United States. And there were, at the time the statistics were done, there was about 10 schools that had a cost of attendance of over $70,000 at the time.
Oh my God!
So you can understand why people would take a higher paying job at those costs per year. You can see why there's a lot of people stressing out about the possible debt load that a lot of people are going in and thinking about, and why they're stressing out, and why they would consider moving on. Even where they are.
I think the amazing thing, Tom, is that 65% of those parents and students who are actively living this right now, right? They don't even know what their options are. So there's a huge problem right there where they're not taking money that's on the table for them to take, right?
That is correct. The document everybody should know about is the FAFSA document from the base, just from the start, the free application to file for student aid. That gives you the opportunity to participate in merit aid and need-based financial aid. 53% of the people that are eligible for need-based financial aid don't even apply. Those are statistics from the Board of Education. So, and most of it is because they think that they won't be able to get money, so they just don't even apply. So there's a lot of money that's left on the table every year.
I'm probably butchering his name, but Chi Wang, the CEO of Box, did you hear what he did last year?
No, I did not.
So if anybody does, Box is one of these mail order companies. They sell bulk stuff to you, kind of like an Amazon, but they specialize in all that stuff you don't want to carry home from the grocery store that you buy at like a BJ's or Sam's Club or something. He last year he announced that he will pay the tuition of all of his employees' children. I mean, who could do that? That's amazing, right? I mean, it's driving engagement. It's not really realistic for a lot of businesses, especially in that small sphere, right? So I want to talk today about, if you're not boxed, then join Small Business USA so we can help grow your business, right? But if you can't afford it, it's a wonderful thing. 20% of, I think the thing is 20% of your employees will actually leverage that. But what else can you do? You can't, people are on a tight budget. What else can an employer do to help their employees and keep them engaged so they don't leave for a higher paying job, especially if they're great. Nobody wants to lose great people.
I think it's a great question. Anybody that's run a business understands the most important part of that business, the people that work there, and the producers and stuff. Now, if you look at statistics on wage freezing and wage growth, which I know that you're very well versed in, you'll realize that just throwing money at the problem is not the issue. In fact, what we're talking about is people that are comfortable at their place of work or are on the verge of, they have to make some tough decisions. As an employer, one of the things that you can offer, and I'd like for most listeners to look this up. We don't have all day to speak about this, but we could do a different blab on it. It's called Sage Tuition Rewards points, and it's a point for dollar match. As an employer, if you're hooked up to this platform, you can offer this to your employees at zero cost. It's an excellent program. Not enough people know about it at this point. But the idea is to be able to, what you could conceivably do is knock about $30,000 or $40,000 off of tuition, and it has nothing to do with grades and it has nothing to do with income. So it's
wow, that's significant.
It's a significant number, and when you're talking about multiple children, which most people are, and overlap, you're talking about big numbers. The numbers that I quoted before of $19,000 in-state state schools, and then the out-of-state state schools at an average of $33,000 and private schools of $42,000 does not factor in the 4-year graduation rate. Again, we've talked about this before.
Right.
And the big problem with that is when you go to a state university, the graduation rate drops down to an average over the United States of 33%. So your opportunity to graduate from a state university, 33%. The private schools go
That's
up to
horrible.
5%. Yeah,
Really?
I'm not going to disagree with you. You can look up in the newspapers and see the issues that are going on with the state of Louisiana and all their schools and the problems that they're having there. And quite honestly, it answers the question of what Obama said about giving school away for free. Well, Louisiana tried to do that. It's a good test study right now to see how that is not working, and that the fact that most of their state universities are because they're going to have to close some of those campuses. To say that LSU will not have a football team next year, or the threat of that, you can only imagine what that will do.
Wow.
At that school. But getting back to what an employer.
Well, can I just ask a question quick?
Absolutely.
If the Sage thing, do you hook them up on that, Tom?
Yes, my platform is partnered with the Sage platform, and it's not I don't want to say it's a performance process, and you're not doing any more work than you would be doing normally. What you're doing is you're tracking the student, and the student is hitting specific thresholds, i.e. SAT work and ACT work, financial responsibilities that they're going through and hitting those thresholds. And what you're doing is you're pre-qualifying yourself for over 400 private school, colleges and universities across the United States. So they are being able to look at you and seeing that you've gone through this particular platform, that you've hit all these thresholds before you even apply for financial aid. So by getting through these specific thresholds, you're earning points for dollars. Now, I'll preface this by saying you can't earn more points than school actually costs and then get a check going back. But
Dang.
Like I said, we're going to do another blab that just focuses on Sage.
Well, so what I did is I put your website, because I believe it's on your website, Sage, right? So they can just go to boylecollegeconsulting.com and they can learn more about that.
Absolutely.
Good,
Absolutely.
good.
Not all about all of the schools that currently participate, and they're adding new schools every year. This is a way for private schools to up the ante, because private schools have more money in their coffers to give back to prospective students, that they want to hit specific thresholds to join their communities, and they're willing to put dollars towards that. This program is an excellent program. It's an excellent program for employers that are looking to offer their employees other benefits besides just going to their pocket, and at no risk, and being able to offer real dollars to them for real educational purposes. And that is, like I said, for per student over a 3-year, so it was a freshman, sophomore, and junior, they could earn almost $30,000 in tuition reduction per student, and that's significant. And with a lot of these schools, that's before you even apply for financial aid.
So, Tom, I think what you're doing, and a lot of you don't know this, but Tom Boyle is going and doing the circuit of talking to businesses and helping businesses with that HR piece and that HR benefit piece. And just a couple things that companies are doing blew me away, but only 17% of employers offer scholarships right now. And then there's a new company called Tuition.io, and Tom will tell you about that. So, visit Tom on Boyle College Consulting, but where they actually set up accounts for the employer to help that contributes to the kids' college tuition. So there's all different ways to do this, but I love what you're doing by helping these employers get out there, and it's free for them, right?
It is.
You just go and educate and help them because there's a little benefit in it for you. Right. I mean, you've got to know that, but it's free for your employees and it's free for the employers. And I think what's really cool is that we're in this environment, right, where we have employee relations, community relations. We know that by hiring an HR manager, you're going to increase productivity and engagement by 147%. And that really is showing right in the bottom line here. But while we're doing things like teaching them to lose weight or having Weight Watcher classes, stress and financial stress is one of the biggest stresses that affects every employee's life. And I think we owe it to them to make a difference here, because I don't know too many employers these days are just writing bigger checks, right? Walmart last year was the last company I heard, and I think they had to go write bigger checks and pay their employees more. Not many people can afford to do that. And I think that's where what you're doing is great. So maybe could you talk about that for a couple minutes?
Well, there's a lot of things that need to be done. We have some big companies down here in North Carolina that have large populaces, a few thousand employees. And they need to keep that talent there. And the talent wants to stay there, but they do have these stresses. And the way that you're able to offer, besides coming out of the hip to these employees, is offering these support networks, offering them real solutions to the real issues that they have. And there are ways to go about it. SAGE is definitely one of the programs that I feel very, very highly about that is not leveraged enough. And my job down here really is to reach out to these companies and say, hey, look, there's a real way to educate your employees, to give them a support network that you're going to be looked upon very good in a very positive light, that you're offering these things. It's at no cost. A person like me comes in and I'm educating that populace to help them find the ways that they need to do to make the steps. There's a platform there. Just to show up at some of these workshops, you're going to get SAGE tuition points, which is dollar for dollar. So,
oh, that's awesome.
So if you had a network of 100 employees and you went out to these 100 employees and said, look, we're going to give you a lot of these answers. We're going to show this whole platform to you. And just for showing up, you're going to get $500.
Right. Wow.
That's something that's meaningful. I mean, and that they can use that, whether they decide to get on a platform and start to work towards reducing that angst, whether it's emotional and financial. But there are tools there, and that's available for these institutions and these companies.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable. I think business owners really, presidents, business owners, HR, we underestimate how important that engagement is to our employees and how big that stress is. So I love what you're doing, Tom. I love that it's free. I love that they get credit already just with Sage, just for spending time with you. I will share a little bit about Tom. And for me, what separates Tom from other people is, Tom is a reformed stockbroker. We put it in I don't know if you saw the little clip, but I think the difference is, I think, Tom, you said at one point you were tired of seeing people that didn't need the money get all this money for college. And the people who really needed it didn't even know how they could get it. And I think what you're doing is just amazing. But when you go into these employers, one of the things that made a huge difference to me when I was in corporate America was having the ability to just ask questions of someone who knew what all of this stuff meant. I mean, just to eliminate the stress and answer questions is so powerful. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Tom, if you can give, let's leave everybody with maybe 3 pieces of advice. And I think about the business owners in particular and these HR managers that might be watching us today. What advice could you give them? And then we'll tell them how to get a hold of you, and you guys can elaborate more if need be.
Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can act on. I recognize that not everybody wants to be an expert in this field. This happens to be my passion. That's the reason why I'm involved in it. So seeking out answers from a professional is a very smart thing to do. Asking questions is a good thing to do. And knowing where to get the information. There's a lot of water cooler buddies out there. The next door neighbor that, says, he has the same job, or the twin brother. In my workshops, I talk a lot about people that have the same jobs, the same number of kids, they live in the same area, and they seem to have the same expenses. But when the door shuts behind them, that everything changes. It goes out the window. Yeah. So understanding definitively where you stand today is really going to be very, very helpful for you to have more and more options going forward. So asking the right questions, knowing what questions to ask is generally most of the time, that's the issue. People don't know what they don't know. So sitting down with a professional and asking those questions and educating yourself is the biggest way to help yourself.
I want to end with a story that will hopefully resonate with every HR manager out there. But so, my husband and I do okay. We have, we don't want for much in life. But just recently, our car broke down, and we decided, okay, it's just time. Instead of fixing it, it's 6 years old. It's time to buy a new one. Yesterday, my husband had to go out and buy a car because he could not work the entire day. He lost an entire day of productivity because he was so stressed out about how big the check he was going to write for a new car was. Consumed with this. And I'm like, what are you doing home? He goes, I just had to come home early because I'm so stressed out about the money to buy a new car. And I'm like, it's not like we haven't been planning to buy a new car or that it's going to change our life in any way. We were just trying to make the one that we had last, being conservative, right? He, believe it or not, he was so stressed out about writing that check. And it was such a little thing. And we're not in a position to ever be stressed out by that, right? But you take that little bit and that personality, and you take that number, about 60% of parents being stressed out about this. And I myself have friends who are CEOs and CFOs and do very, very well financially. And when their kids went to college, they lost their minds that year before. They were selling off cars, they were selling off property, and they thought they were all set before their daughters were going off to college. So to just make a difference in your employee's life, to just let them know that you care and you hear and you feel with them, I think whether it's Tom or anybody else, it's going to make a gigantic difference for your employee. It's not about just cutting your healthcare costs down by having an exercise class. This is about understanding the financial stress and making a big difference in not only their life, but their kids. Don't underestimate that.
I agree with you. I'd like to just add one thing, Colleen. And if you think from a managerial standpoint, you're at a company and you have this large populace working for you. If they're stressing about stuff like this, they are less productive. There's many, 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 many studies that go along with what I'm saying. If you have the ability to alleviate this stress question mark, these are answers that can be definitively answered. There's no question. If you go through this process the proper way, and you work with a financial advisor or a CPA, and you have professionals looking at this thing, and you know where you can stand, you can alleviate a huge amount of question marks, that's what causes the stress.
Right.
And then whether it's the parents taking on some debt, or you have the child having skin in the game and they're taking on debt, knowing definitively what that looks like over a specific amount of time, that answers questions, and that alleviates a lot of the stress that's going on. I'm not going to say it's going to reduce it 100%, but going in blindly, there's just look at the biggest debt bubble going on right now, and that has to do with college debt. 3% of the American public have the ability to pay for 1 year of college with no help going on.
Wow.
It leaves a huge, huge gap with the amount of people that are out there currently. So a big group does not know what that really looks like. And what they have for a long period of time is fumble their way through it. That is not the way to address this specific issue. In my humble opinion, it's too costly. It's not like when you and I went to school.
Right.
The mistakes are amplified by multiples of 10. So understanding where and educating yourself is the biggest first step.
Awesome. Tom, how do they get a hold of you? So you're in the North Carolina area. If they are in New York, can you help them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of my business is virtual.
Okay.
I can be reached at my website is www.boylecollegeconsulting.com.
Okay.
Or you can reach me at boylecollegeconsulting@gmail.com. And you can check me. You can also reach me on Generating Winners. I'm a contributing writer for Generating Winners, so my contact information is on there as well.
Awesome.
And that's it.
Awesome. Tom, thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing. I love that you've kind of taken this angle and you're making a difference. You're building your business, but making a difference for a lot of people out there. And I appreciate the time that you contribute to these businesses, and, just knowing some people that you've helped. And I think, kudos to you, Tom Boyle.
Thank you very much, Colleen, and thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Again, Colleen Ferrary, Small Business USA. It's smallbusinessus.com. Please reach out. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn if you need to get a hold of Tom Boyle. It's such a tough name to remember, but I will be happy to connect you with Tom as well. And here's to your success, your children's success, and your employees' success. Thank you so much. Have a great, great day.
Cheers.